What won? The war no one expected Japan to win. The First World War is usually told through mud, trenches, and Europe in flames. But far from the Western Front, another power was quietly rising. In 1914, Japan was not expected to matter. No massive armies in France, no endless casualty lists, no famous last stands. And yet, when the war ended, Japan emerged stronger, richer, and more powerful than when it began. So how did Japan win World War I? Without fighting the war everyone remembers. To understand this, we need to go back before the first shot was fired. At the start of the 20th century, Japan was a newcomer to the world's great powers. Only 50 years earlier, it had been a feudal society, closed to outsiders. But after the Meiji Restoration, Japan modernized at terrifying speed. Factories, railways, steel, and a modern navy built in the image of Britain. By 1914, Japan had already defeated China and shocked the world by defeating Russia in 1905. That victory sent a clear message. Japan was no longer just an Asian nation, it was an imperial power. And crucially, Japan had an alliance. In 1902, Japan and Britain signed the Anglo-Japanese alliance. It was simple. If either faced war in Asia, the other would support them. So when World War I exploded in Europe in August 1914, Japan saw an opportunity. Germany had colonies in the Pacific. Germany had a powerful naval base in China, Qingdao. And Germany was now distracted, fighting for survival in Europe. Japan didn't rush into the war with speeches or ideology. It sent an ultimatum. Germany was given a choice: withdraw from Asia or face Japan. Germany refused. Japan declared war on Germany on August 23, 1914. And suddenly Japan had entered World War I, not to save Europe, but to expand its empire. Japan's first target was Qingdao, Germany's fortress in China. A modern port, heavy guns. German troops trained for defense, but the German garrison was isolated. Japan surrounded Qingdao by land and sea. Japanese artillery pounded the defenses. Japanese engineers dug trenches, ironically mirroring the war in Europe. After 2 months, the Germans surrendered. Japan had just captured Germany's strongest base in East Asia. But this was only the beginning. While Europe drowned in blood, Japan moved silently across the Pacific. German islands, Marshalls, Carolines, Marianas, fell one by one. No massive battles, no dramatic resistance. Japan took them all, and with each island captured, Japan's influence grew. By 1915, Japan controlled vast territories without losing hundreds of thousands of men. Its factories were booming, its navy dominated East Asian waters. But Japan wanted more than land, it wanted recognition. So in 1915, Japan made a bold move, one that revealed its true ambition, the 21 demands. Japan presented China with a list of demands that would have turned China into a Japanese protectorate. Control over railways, ports, industries, political influence. China resisted. The world watched. Under international pressure, Japan backed down slightly, but still gained major concessions. The message was clear. Japan was no longer asking for permission. While European powers were locked in trench warfare, Japan was reshaping Asia. And when the war dragged on, Japan benefited even more. European factories were focused on weapons. European trade collapsed. Japan filled the gap. Japanese goods flooded Asian markets. Textiles, steel, machinery. Japan's economy exploded. By the time the war neared its end, Japan had barely suffered compared to Europe, yet stood among the victors. But the final test came not on the battlefield, it came at the peace table. Part 2. Japan at the victors' table. In 1918, the guns finally fell silent. Europe was shattered, empires had collapsed. Millions were dead. And Japan? Japan arrived at the Paris Peace Conference not as a minor ally, but as one of the winners. Japan demanded what it believed it had earned. German colonies in the Pacific, German rights in China. Recognition as a global power, and on paper, Japan succeeded. The Treaty of Versailles transferred Germany's Pacific islands to Japan as League of Nations mandates. Qingdao and German privileges in Shandong were handed to Japan. Territory without trenches, power without ruin. Japan had turned World War I into a strategic masterstroke. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Japan wanted more than land. It wanted equality. At the League of Nations, Japan proposed a racial equality clause, a statement that all nations and peoples should be treated equally. For Japan, this was symbolic and political. It wanted to be recognized as equal to Western powers. The proposal gained majority support, but it was quietly blocked, especially by the United States and British dominions like Australia. Japan noticed the message was subtle but brutal. Japan could win wars, Japan could gain territory, but it would never truly be accepted as equal. At home, Japan celebrated victory, but unrest was growing. Inflation soared, rice prices exploded. In 1918, riots broke out across the country. The war had made Japan powerful, but also unstable. Still, in pure strategic terms, Japan had won. It expanded its empire, strengthened its navy, boosted its industry, and emerged as the dominant power in East Asia. Unlike Britain or France, Japan was not exhausted. Unlike Germany, Japan was not humiliated, but the legacy of World War I planted dangerous seeds. Japan learned a powerful lesson. War could be won without fighting Europe directly. Territory could be taken while others bled, and international systems could be used, then ignored. The resentment over racial inequality never faded. The belief that Japan deserved more hardened, and the empire began to look beyond the limits imposed by the West. World War I did not end Japan's ambitions, it sharpened them. In Part 3, why Japan's victory led to another war. So did Japan really win World War I? On the surface, yes, Japan gained territory, power, prestige. But history is rarely that simple. World War I transformed Japan into a global power, but also set it on a collision course with the world. The naval expansion during the war alarmed the United States. Japan's influence in China triggered resistance and nationalism. Western powers began to see Japan not as an ally, but as a rival. In the 1920s, new treaties attempted to limit Japan's navy. To contain its power, Japan felt betrayed. Once again, the lesson was reinforced. The West would accept Japan's help, but never its dominance. World War I taught Japan how to exploit global conflict. World War II would show the cost of pushing that lesson too far. Because the quiet victory of 1918 led directly to the storms of the 1930s, to militarism, to expansion. To Pearl Harbor, Japan didn't just participate in World War I. It mastered it, not through trenches or total war, but through timing, strategy, and ambition. And in doing so, it changed the balance of power in Asia forever. The war, everyone remembers, happened in Europe, but the consequences that shaped the Pacific began somewhere else. And they began with Japan.